Open Mic with Mike Balsom here on Giant TV. Special treat today. We have an Olympic boxer in the studio. Not only is he an Olympic boxer, he's an entrepreneur. For many years, ran the Highland Tap on Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. Currently a city councillor in the city in his second term as a city councillor.
Yes.
He's a principal of 2 charities. He's wearing one of the t-shirts, Box Run. How many box runs did you do, Mike? 2?
Well, I did 2 runs, and then I did the Camino in Spain, and then we did a box climb with fellow councillor Victor
Yes.
Peterangelo, which was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just, something that I don't know if I'll ever do again, because it's kind of, running, I don't really have to worry about maybe getting hit by a car, but climbing, you fall 5 feet, you can really hurt yourself.
Also, Heaters Heroes, and that's coming up soon this summer.
August 10th. So Heaters Heroes, we're our 9th annual Heaters Heroes, where we help children that have terminal illnesses or life-altering illnesses or injuries around the Niagara region, but we have gone as far as Ottawa to help children and their families. So it's Oaks Park on August 10th, and I can't believe it's 9 years already.
So if you haven't guessed already, it's Mike Strange in the studio
Thank you
with
for
me.
having me. Really
the
appreciate it.
reason I invited you in was to talk about your choice to run as an independent. And we'll get to that in this upcoming federal election this fall. We will get to that. I want to talk a little bit about your life, your career. And let's begin with boxing. As we discussed before turning on the cameras, I think I met you when you were about 14 years old. So just as you were starting to think that you were going to get into this boxing world.
I started boxing when I was 10, and the reason was because my neighbor, Rob Fortuna, who was an Ontario champion and a Canadian champion at one time, and he asked me to go down. And the biggest thing when I was 10 years old is that you won a trophy whether you won or lost. So there was a few second places when I first started.
Yeah.
And you can't get worse than that because there's only 2 opponents. You're fighting against somebody else.
My son doesn't understand it. My son thinks that I never did anything in sports because I have 1 trophy.
Yeah.
In the meantime, he's won a trophy for everything. He wins a trophy for showing up.
Yes, exactly. And it's a different world now, that's for sure. But from the 10 to 14, I was competing in 3 different sports, and I liked hockey and soccer, and but it was 84 actually when I met you. But that's just a year for me when I first watched my first Olympics, and Sean O'Sullivan, Willie DeWitt, and you remember those 2, and they went on to win 2 silver medals for Canada. And I just remember watching them, and they were second on the podium, and the Canadian flag being risen, and thought, wow, I'd love to go to the Olympics one day and represent, Canada, and but never thought that you could ever do something like that. You had to go to a special Olympic school or whatever. How, what is the process of getting there? And then, I just kind of set goals for myself to get to those, the big dream of getting the Olympics. You have to set goals for yourself and mini goals to get to that kind of platform of, the Olympics and representing Canada. So started off, going to the Ontario Championships in 84 and winning the Ontario Championships and then going to the Nationals. And I ended up getting to the finals my first 2 years, and I always lost to a boxer from Quebec. And, my third year in 1987, and I won the provincials, and I ended up going to St. John's, Newfoundland, and I ended up winning the Canadian Championships, and it was crazy, and beat a boxer from Quebec finally, and and then after that, I ended up representing Canada all over the world as a junior, and just amazing, and just you always thought, kind of traveling and going was. Going to the Walden Galleria over in the States with your mom, shopping, and, you don't really realize, you thought that was like, I traveled internationally, but, one of my first trips was I went to Russia, Moscow, and that was back when, it was still communist.
Iron Curtain.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Yeah, me and Billy Irwin another boxer, ended up getting attacked because we were just walking around like it's a normal thing just to walk around the streets of Moscow, right? And he had a Buffalo Bills hat on.
Right.
And so these 3 big kind of hooligans, were roaming the streets, and they're kind of big guys too. And they chased us and ended up trying to fight us. And we told them we were from Canada. And then they're like, oh, okay. They thought we were from the United States.
From the U.S.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so just like, wow, that could have turned a different way for sure. But, back then, it's just crazy. And then we went to Africa for three weeks, and we saw one of our first countries we went to was Kenya. We were in Nairobi, and we saw a lot of kids playing soccer. They had no shoes, and the one kid had shoes, and we're like, "Oh, he lifted his shoes up, but he had no bottoms to the shoes. He just had the tops to the shoes." So, and they're playing soccer, but he was so proud of those shoes. I got shoes, and he's just like hit you right there, and
well,
you
boxing
realize
really gave you the education.
Yes, and you realize what a great country we lived in. You literally came back and you kissed the ground at Pearson International Airport and saying, "Wow, we are so lucky to live in a fantastic country." And we ended up donating a bunch of shoes and boxing gloves and stuff over to the boxing gym over there, because we went to the one facility and there was like 30 boxers in a room, probably just twice the size of this. It was just they're all bumping against each other, and it's just like, we didn't realize how fortunate we are until visited those countries. You don't really realize what a great country we live in.
Talk about how fortunate you were to represent Canada at the Olympics. How many Olympics did you go to?
We're at 3 Olympics, and first, there's not another Canadian boxer who's ever been to 3 Olympics. Normally, a Canadian boxer will go and they'll have the goal of turning professional and trying to be a world champion.
Did you ever have that goal? Because you never took that step.
I did. You know what? I did it in '92. Me and Billy the Kid Irwin, just to get to the '92 Olympics. Before that, if you were the Canadian champion, you got to go to the Olympics. But because they were cutting down on the participants, the numbers that were going into the sport of boxing, there were only 32 boxers in our weight class around the world, so many countries, right? So we had to not only win the Canadian championship, but you actually had to go and box in all of North America and South America to compete for spots. So me and Billy, we had to qualify. We went to Dominican Republic, and we ended up qualifying. And I just remember, and I was a little cocky kid, coming out of Stanford High School and thinking, I qualify for the Olympics, I'm going to go, I'm going to win a gold medal, and I'm going to come back, I'm going to turn professional, and I'm going to make millions.
Yeah.
Well, went to Barcelona, and one of the first parts of the Olympics is going to the opening ceremonies, which is just overwhelming. It really is. Excuse me. So we're lined up to go into those big stadium in Barcelona, and, Canada's probably about 10th or 15th down the line. We're waiting for hours and hours and hours. We have to weigh in the next day, and you're a little anxious and, goof around a bit with your Canadian team, and they announce Canada, and we go up the ramp and there's like 100,000 people. I just started shaking. I was just like, wow, I've never
seen a crowd like that.
Never in my life. And I just kind of it shocked me. And you know what? A few days later, I fought my first fight, lost. That was the end of my Olympic dream. Once you lose in boxing, there's no second chance.
That's right.
I came back, and I remember, looking at all these trophies and medals and all this stuff that I won, internationally and locally, and looking at these track suits, Canadian nice track suits that you've worn, and thinking, I'm not turning professional. I didn't win a gold medal. I'm not going to make millions, and stuck with school and open up a business, a bar business, and it just hit reality, and.
It'll make you work harder.
It made you work harder. It made you work harder.
Atlanta was the next one.
It was,
you were robbed in Atlanta. I have to say, you were robbed in Atlanta.
Yeah. But up to then, I really was training hard, and that was the good thing about not going professional is, Billy turned professional where I stayed amateur, but I got to adapt to the system, the computer scoring, and became better at it. And became a veteran on our Canadian team, and being a leader, being team captain, and then I remember going to the Commonwealth Games in Victoria in 1994, and very seldom do you ever get to compete at a great, huge international tournament in your own country, and this was going to be amazing. I get to compete on my own soil, and about a month before, my cousin and good friend passed away in a car accident, Patrick Delaney, and just devastated. And, I remember going to the funeral the day that I had to leave for training camp in Alberta, and not wanting to go and stuff like that. I remember my aunt Helen saying, you go and you win the gold medal for your cousin Pat. So having that kind of extra, incentive and extra inspiration to go. And I had 5 tough boxing matches and I won a gold medal, and it was just amazing. And I just remember being on top of the podium and listening to the national anthem with their Canadian flag being risen. You always remember, athletes crying, and I was, if that ever happened to me, I'll never cry. But I cried like a little baby. You're very proud that you did it for Canada, in Canada, and then part of that went, for my cousin Pat, and still have the gold medals on his gravestone in Fairview Cemetery in Niagara Falls. So it was a very special moment.
Yeah.
And
sure.
from them, I was ranked 5th in the world, and ended up going to Atlanta. And this time I was there not to get shot going in the opening ceremonies, and it was very close because it was in Atlanta. So my family got to go, and my brother got to go, and he was my coach, and just amazing. And I won my first 2 matches pretty handily, and I ended up in the 3rd match in the quarterfinals. And if I would have won this match, I would have won at least a medal. And I was boxing against a Bulgarian, Toncho Tonchev, I'll never forget his name, and the head official of the International Boxing Association, the officials, was from Bulgaria. There was rumors they weren't counting body shots at this point, and all of a sudden, he came out in the first 10 seconds, threw 5 body shots. I was down 5-0 right away. It was just like, okay, the rules have changed. Came down in the first corner after the first round in my corner, and they weren't supposed to show the counts, but everyone had ways of kind of knowing the score. They knew I was down, and I was like, they're like, Mike, you got to really get aggressive. They're counting these shots, so you got to make sure that any block that you do, you counter right away. And then, there was points in the 3rd round where I hit him and he was getting the points, and it was devastating. It really was. And so I ended up losing, and I was so, I cried after. You imagine 4 years of your life, you're training your butt off for these particular Olympics, and he went on to win a silver medal, and I should have got at least that. And unfortunately, it didn't happen, and I ended up getting all these like emails and faxes back then
Yes.
to the Olympic Stadium, and thousands. And it was just because I think because I apologized to Niagara Falls because they did a lot of fundraising. Niagara was so amazing to me, and so that's why I was very upset. At one point I said, if I would have won a medal, I would have chopped it in like 75,000 pieces to give everyone a piece, because Niagara Falls really deserved it, because they got really behind me.
Is that one of the reasons why we're sitting here today, and you're now a city councilor, you're giving back to the city? Is that one of the reasons why you took that step and put your name in 2 elections ago? Yeah,
I think so. And I didn't really know a lot about politics. I never was a poli-sci guy or anything like that, but I learned. I ran across Canada in 2012 and then 2014, and then right after that, shortly after, decided to, put my foot in the political ring, I guess. And Niagara Falls, I love Niagara Falls. I grew up there since I was a kid, and was pretty green going in, and decided to go for it. And I ended up finishing 2nd. I think there was 33 candidates at that time, and finished 2nd, so 2nd of the 8. So I got on, and very nervous, and was I ready? I don't know. It was a big learning curve for sure. But when you care about your city so much, and you'll do anything for it. It doesn't pay a lot. You got to go to different events, but I have some great mentors on council, and whether you like them or not, like Wayne Thompson, who's been there forever. He was a mayor when I was competing. Learned a lot from him, and Jim Diodati, and Vic Pietrangelo, who became
You're really close with Vic.
Really close with Vic. So every time we go running, it's like I'm getting a political degree. He's good, and he's such a kind-hearted guy, and another guy like myself loves the city of Niagara Falls. So I go out and we go running on the Bruce Trail or whatever, and we talk about different concerns and different issues, and sometimes sometimes I won't agree with them. But you know what? After council, it's done. Like, I never agree with them on an issue, and whatever. We still remain friends no matter what happens. And I think that's very, very important. That you may not have the same views, but collectively you want the best for what's.
That's right. And you can hash them out and come to a solution.
You can, for sure.
One might say that 20 plus years running a pub was a little bit of a political education as well.
Oh my God. Yes.
Wouldn't that be
yeah,
right?
for sure. So right after the '94 Commonwealth Games, and I was always in the hospitality industry and bartended at different bars, and the Karen Croft, Fitz Willie's, and then we decided to hook up with a couple guys, and we ended up opening the Highland Tap on Lundy's Lane, which is now the Blind Pig, and being a small business. And for 21 and a half years, you just learned it was just, wow. My hat's off to anyone that opens up a small business. The long hours, it's just crazy. And man, it's 21 and a half years. And I miss it. I don't miss the day-to-day work because it was really, really tough.
But you must miss the people.
I
you
miss
must
the people.
Miss the camaraderie.
I do. People coming in and you become a psychologist sometimes and listen to their stories and whether it be political or whatever it is. And then I decided to become a real estate agent for Masterson Realty, who's a great guy. His family owned the Niagara Falls Junior B Canucks for many, many years. And so I was doing that. Plus, at one time I was real estate, city council, and a bar owner. And then,
and still doing some boxing classes
and coaching, giving back, and you're doing different charities, Heaters Heroes and Box Run, and it was really, really, really overwhelming. That I decided, and it was a really, really tough decision to close the pub in May of 2016. Made sure it was after the St. Paddy's Day because that was our biggest day of the year, and missed those days. But tough decision, but in the end, it was long enough for me. And decided to concentrate more on, city council and real estate. And real estate's been great, and it's been booming. You're getting a lot of people from Toronto moving down to Niagara Falls and Niagara Lake, Fort Erie, and it's been good. It's been good, and we've been seeing our population grow quite a bit.
Is it hard as a city councilor who's a real estate agent to sort of be neutral on development issues?
Yes, it is. You know what I mean? And development-wise, in Niagara Falls alone, like there's lots of development. It's tough to find land now in Niagara Falls. So, there's issues. There's so many people coming in, and it's tough for people to afford a house now. You know what I mean? It's really tough. I feel for the young people growing up, and to try to afford a house, and it's tough to find a house under $350,000
That's right.
in the Niagara region. Never mind, Niagara Lake, where it's a lot more. And then, in Fort Erie is going to be growing, I know for sure. And you see it in Welland. You're seeing, a lot of people are selling their 1.5 million probably dollar shacks in Toronto and moving down where they can. I can buy a home for like $500,000-600,000 and have a backyard where my kids can grow up, or I can retire, which is gonna obviously help. But you're seeing a lot of these kids. Where do I go?
That's right.
And it's gonna be tough, really tough for kids to be able to afford. So, hopefully, and it's not easy to get a mortgage. So we have to hopefully ease up on that for our future, for these children to grow up and be able to afford a home in the Niagara region.
Last year, you wanted to run in the provincial election.
I did.
You were hoping to get the Conservative nod.
Yes.
And that ended up being very controversial.
It did. You know what? So Niagara Conservatives, I'm very close friends with a lot of people around the board there, and Bart Mays is a mentor of mine as well, and even Rob Nicholson. When I first voted in 1988, he was the first guy I put a check mark to.
Of course.
Great guy who, he's done a lot for our community, and, he made the decision early that this would be his last year, and deservedly so because, he's been in it for a long, long, long time. So I decided provincially, at the time, Patrick Brown was the leader, and I decided, I'm going to put my foot forward and try to run Conservative in our provincial government. And at that time, you saw the change, and you saw that the Liberals with Kathleen Wynne, it was time for a change. So I went up and, I put my name in, and at the time, there was no one else that put their name in.
That's right.
Nobody else. And then, it was like, God, it had to be about a month month and a half, and then there was rumors that these pictures have come out of me, you know, and so I got this package delivered to me at my mailbox, and it was in an envelope, and I opened it up, and there was like pictures with me,
Halloween costumes,
me dressed up as a woman, which it was a funny story because they always used to say I hit like a girl in boxing. I was never a strong puncher. I was very technical. I was one of those guys whose defense and
well, you were a smart boxer. Going back to what you said earlier, you learned how to score, and that's really what your strength
and
was.
I always wore headgear, and you know, I would say, you know, and learned, you know, going from the amateur level to pro is like going from a sport to a business.
So people said that you punched like a girl. And so that was the theme of that Halloween costume.
Yeah. Tom Gillespie used to call me pea soup, and I don't know what it was, but it was like pea soup because we just kind of like you hit like a, you know, just like a little pea, like a fly type thing, right? And so it was just like, oh, I'll dress up like a girl then. And so I dressed up like a Xena the Warrior Princess and female figure skater, and you know, the one year I dressed up, me and my buddy dressed up like the Williams sisters, and back in 2008, 2009, and we painted our faces black, and we did, and not thinking.
So those pictures were all in that package.
They were and they were on my social media.
Released,
they were on my social media, so it was easy to grab them.
Yeah.
So and not thinking of the implications that was going to cause years after, and you know, of blackface and sort of, and I didn't mean to offend anybody, and you know, I raised money for childhood cancer, for children of all ethnic origins, and you know, for someone to paint me with that brush, I was really, really offended. So I went up and I had a meeting with Patrick Brown's people up in Toronto. So this wasn't from the Niagara Conservatives. They wanted me in,
right.
But this was internal. We found out. We don't know the names, but we found out it was internal that came up with these pictures and all this stuff. It wasn't out from an NDP trying to get me or a Liberal trying to. This was internal within the party.
Yeah.
So I went up and I spoke with part of the committee who's kind of decide provincially now. Niagara was letting me. They go, we want you in, Mike. But it was the provincial party that was like.
Well, the rumors were out there a year ahead of all of this that Mike Strange was probably going to get the nod in Niagara Falls.
For this position.
Yeah.
And so I went up there, and they said to people there, and I'm not going to mention names or anything, but they said, you know, Mike, you know, they had me on speakerphone, you know, talking to other people that were on the committee, and this issue came up about the picture. You know, I'm like, yeah, you know, this was something. I went as a tennis icon and whatever, and went in and said, well, you know, we don't, you know, you'll always be with us in the party. Maybe not now, but maybe in years. I'm like, well, I'm not stepping down. And they kind of looked at each other like, what do you mean you're not stepping down? I'm not stepping down. If you want to disqualify me, disqualify me. I'm not stepping down.
Yeah,
I've never stepped down for
anything.
anything in my life. So they said, okay, we're going to come up with our decision. Well, the day. So Chuck McShane and I'm good friends with Chuck McShane. He put his name in, and he was basically, so it came down to the last day whether to decide whether I'm in or not. Basically, I didn't have a chance to do anything. And they had till, I think, 6 o'clock at night. At like 4 o'clock. One sentence. Didn't even say, hey, Mike, hey, just want to let you know that you didn't pass our vetting process. That was it. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, just to... You know,
is that part of why we're here today? That you're running federally as an independent, not tied to any party?
Truthfully, I don't think I was ready at that time. I really didn't, and I'm kind of glad because the people that kind of made that decision to not let me run, they got ousted themselves.
That's right.
And I'm not mentioning names or anything. That was not the Niagara PCs that did that. It was the provincial PCs. So Doug Ford gets in, and you see the cuts that he's making, and I'm glad that I never got in, because, you know, it's one of those things. He's, you know, and the Liberals and Wynne were in there, and you know, it's not easy decisions to make as a leader. But the money that was wasted, and Ontario was so much debt, and Ford's coming in and he's making tons of cuts, but now he's making cuts to healthcare and something I dearly, care for, right? Obviously, health and you don't want to see those cuts, especially to children and all over. And it's something that I'm glad I'm not in that position now. So now it's coming into federal, and now it was a decision kind of to go with a party. But you saw in the last year a lot of federal candidates, even people who were ministers, step down or getting kicked out of caucus because they're speaking against the government and
That's
different
right.
policies.
So as an independent, you feel that you have that freedom if you do get elected.
I do.
You have the freedom to speak
I
for
do.
yourself
and I think,
for your constituency.
Tony Baldinelli's our candidate for PC, and I know Tony. Great guy. Joyce Morocco's running for Liberals. The nominations, they haven't gone through who's winning. I think she's going against Andrea Kaiser.
Andrea Kaiser, yes.
In Niagara Lake, and that's going to be, and Joyce is, I love Joyce. Spent time with her on council, and she's a great person. And then, there's Brian from the NDP party, who actually was really nice when he found out I was running independent, sent me a message and say, you know what, followed you. He goes, sometimes we don't always agree with issues in politics, but you welcome to this kind of election, and we'll see you on the campaign trail. So anyone to step up in any party, good for them. To try to stand. But I just think I wish everyone was running independent, because I think they're all good people, and the party, every party has different policies or issues that kind of, if you combine them, would be great. But if I'm a liberal and I want to go and I get elected as a liberal and Trudeau was still the leader, and I want to say, you know what, I think our veterans deserve more money. I can't speak up to that.
That's right.
Well, we don't. You're kicked out of caucus. Well, or if I go and I say, listen, I want a little bit more, we live in an important riding. Well, we got, Niagara Lake, Fort Erie, Niagara Falls. We have 4 international borders. So, if I said to Trudeau, I said, listen, I think we need more responsible immigration. People are coming from the States. They're walking over our borders, some are claiming refugee status when we know 40% of them are not refugees. You're walking from New York? Is that a refugee zone? Is it you have to escape New York? You know what I mean? I know there was a movie about that. But
I was just going to say, what's his name? Kurt Russell had to escape from New York.
So, I think responsible immigration is a point, and follow the process and have more discussions with the leader of the United States.
So Trump. How will you convince the electorate to vote for you as an independent candidate?
Well, I think I need to bring the voice of Niagara. Different people have great ideas in Niagara, but again, they can't bring those to different parties, because there's NDPs, there's Liberals, there's PCs, Green, whatever it may be, that have great issues, but they can't bring them forward to Ottawa. I want to bring the voice of Niagara and different ideas of Niagara to Ottawa, so I can speak about their issues in Niagara. Bring the voice of Niagara to Ottawa. It's going to be an important election, and it's more than likely it's going to be minority government. So you look at the polls, one day, it's in favor of Liberals, the next day it's in favor of the PCs. And now, if you're in a voting situation where it's a minority government, and we have 6 or 7 independents there, we're holding the balance of the power.
Yeah.
We're going to decide which way to go. So, I think it's going to be more of the trend now to, the freedom of speech, not being able to afraid and get up and speak on different issues. And you're going to be surprised, I think, more independents coming to Ottawa.
Mike, we have to wrap things up. Do you have a website set up for your campaign yet?
Well, we don't, because we can't really advertise until they actually drop the writ, it's called, about 5 weeks before the election. So we're in a little bit of disadvantage, because we can't even start raising funds and stuff. When you're behind a big political party like, the Reds, the Blues, the Greens, the Orange, whatever it is, they have the party behind them. They can raise funds. They can start advertising right now. They can go door to door, where as an independent I can't. So we're setting up our team, and hopefully, if people would like to be interested, just message me on Facebook or email me at mikestrange@hotmail.com. I don't not using my city obviously for Niagara Falls, but we're gonna put in a tough fight. We know we're in an uphill battle, but again, I really want to bring the voice of Niagara to Ottawa with our issues, and not worry about Toronto when all the other parties are worried about Toronto and losing those 25 so seats. That's what they care about. They don't care about Niagara.
That's right. Mike Strange, good luck on the election later this fall. We've been with Mike Strange here in the Giant TV Niagara studios. You've been watching Open Mic with Mike Balsom. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much, Mike.